welcome into KC Sports tonight, Thursday, August 14th, aka preseason game number 2 eve. Gabe, we'll start though with the big news of the day, which is the NFL setting a date for a disciplinary hearing for Rashee Rice. So I looked it up, Gabe. It's been 501 days since that multi-car crash in Dallas late last month. Rice pleaded guilty to 2 third-degree felony counts. He has been sentenced to 5 years of probation, 30 days of jail time. But this is the first time that we've now heard from the NFL in terms of moving forward in its disciplinary process. Gabe, I know you've done a lot of research today and kind of setting up some context. So wondering if you can just kind of roll through your findings a little bit and provide some necessary context to this entire situation.
Yeah, so Dan Graziano of ESPN pointed out the, I guess, precedent we have. It's not apples to apples because we have one example, so it's not like we have a large data set of how the league has handled this in this particular way, and it's also for a completely different alleged crime or personal conduct policy violation. So you're talking
about the judge, Sue L. Robinson?
Yes. So Sue L. Robinson is the judge. She has, for lack of a better way of saying it, judged one case. And I don't know if you can even call it a case because it's all just in the realm of a personal conduct policy violation, which is very broad, very wide ranging because the NFL is not a criminal justice center, and it does not require it doesn't require a guilty plea for them to, there doesn't have to be an admittance of guilt for there to be a punishment levied by the league. And we saw that in the Deshaun Watson case, which is the only case that this judge has dealt with for the league. And that's despite the fact that Deshaun Watson was not found guilty of any crimes. All of his sexual assault or sexual misconduct violations in that situation were all civil cases, and those were then settled and such. And so what Dan Graziano pointed out is that Sue Robinson oversaw Deshaun Watson's disciplinary hearing. Well, that disciplinary hearing happened on June 28th of 2022, and her decision for the suspension was issued on August 1st. Then it got appealed, and it got ultimately finalized on August 18th. So that's a little more than a month and a half, which I think when people saw the alert from Adam Schefter this morning that said Rashee Rice is going to have a disciplinary hearing with the NFL on September 30th,
he could be out for 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people went and they saw the schedule and they said, oh, okay, so he's going to be able to play the first 4 weeks. That is what we're presuming, because there is a mechanism in which the league could ultimately just settle it before doing that. If Rashee Rice and the NFLPA and the NFL come to an agreement, that could happen. It's not necessarily the likeliest outcome, but it's on the table. But I think people saw the Schefter report and they said, oh, okay, he's going to play these first 4 games and then he's going to get suspended before week 5, and the Chiefs are just going to go from there, and he will miss the week 5 Monday Night Football game against the Jaguars and on for 4, 5, 6 games, whatever the decision is, 8 games, whatever the suspension becomes. People just made that assumption. Well,
probably
if we're to believe this, which anyways, September 30th is what, a Monday? I'm looking at the calendar now.
The 28th is a Sunday, so Tuesday.
Is a Tuesday.
Yeah.
So
I live by NFL dates.
Yes, there you go. You know one date, and so you know what the other days of the week are. September 30th is a Tuesday. If that meeting is happening in New York on a Tuesday, even if a decision is expedited, you're looking at less than a week from the case hearing to the next Chiefs game.
And Rice
that Monday
can
night.
appeal that, correct? And the NFL can appeal it.
And the NFLPA oftentimes is incentivized to appeal it just on behalf of wanting to stand up for the player, wanting to stand up for its – I mean, you got to think of if you are not playing, you're also not making the game checks and those types of things. And so That's a long way of putting that the idea that he is just going to be suspended in October of this season, essentially, if we're just getting a 4-game suspension, that is probably not the likeliest outcome. And so, yes, we have had the legal proceedings cleared up as of July, but the football implications of what Rashee Rice's punishment will be at his place of work still remain to be seen. And even with the way that they remain to be seen and the way that the NFL's personal conduct policy gets adjudicated, it still remains, as we said in July, when we said, what do you think about the suspension date? What does NFL history of suspensions and guys who have had violations of the personal conduct policy for car-related incidents, all of those types of things, what does that make us think? It's a long way of saying we still don't know. Yeah. And anyone claiming to absolutely definitively know what's going to happen is probably guessing or just saying that. Yeah,
it's two-pronged, right? Because it's, one, how long will the potential suspension be, and then two, when will it kick in? So we get a little bit closer to potentially knowing those things, but as you said, so many moving parts, and even on September 30th, we could not know. But now we at least know that is when the NFL disciplinary hearing is, and we'll certainly have a little bit of a clearer picture moving forward there.
And I think that it's worth pointing out, because I think that it bothered me today as somebody who's sitting around researching things, also just scrolling through social media and seeing the way that people are talking about things, is that there was we just lived through all of the 2024 season and people thinking that the NFL is favoring the Chiefs, officiating, all of these types of things. And we can say all of the things about how dumb those arguments were, how nonsensical those arguments were. Yeah. And today, this news comes out and people say, oh, it's because the NFL doesn't want Rashee Rice to miss the game in Brazil. They don't want him to miss a Super Bowl rematch against the Eagles. They don't want him to miss a game against the Baltimore Ravens that figures to be one of the most influential in the AFC Championship game. Yeah. Oh, the Chiefs they're really not getting penalized at all for this. That idea I find to be offensive, and also with the way that Graziano reported it of, hey, September 30th is the first day that Sue Robinson's schedule is open. Sounds like she's a very busy woman. That's not the way that reality is shaped. And if you just look at the Chiefs' schedule from an objective standpoint, even if what we just said about when the suspension is levied is wrong, and they have the September 30th hearing, and they come to a decision that week, and Rashee Rice's first game missed is Week 5, and the NFLPA is like, you know what, we're not gonna appeal. That's what he deserves, and he's accepting it just like he accepted the plea in Dallas. Week 5 is a road primetime game against the Jaguars. Week 6 is a home primetime game against the team that had the best record in the NFC last season. Week 7 is against a divisional rival. And Week 8 is against, a team that went to the NFC Championship game last year in the Commanders in a primetime game. The Chiefs' schedule is loaded. They've finished in first place 9 straight years. There's nowhere for them to hide, and there's nowhere that the Chiefs are just like, you know what, this would be really convenient. Yeah. If anything, having him play to start the season and then pulling him out of the lineup and saying, oh, you're not going to play now, and then reinserting him into the lineup later in the season, if we saw anything from the Chiefs last season of who's who and who's in the lineup this week and who's not from the wide receiver core, that matters greatly. So I would think that going in and out of the lineup, if anything, yes, that is a punishment for the Chiefs. And I just think that it's ridiculous to believe that the NFL is somehow looking out for the Chiefs.
Well, and I'll add this. The later you get into the season, the more likely it becomes that this flows over to the postseason.
Yeah.
Right? So really, honestly, I think you would quote-unquote want this to happen earlier, to where you could be playing your best football and have answers going into the postseason, and that you have Rice in the postseason. But again, a lot to be answered from here. But This is the first time, again, 501 days ago, that the NFL has solidly moved forward instead of for a while it was, well, we're waiting for the legal process to play out, and then last month it did, and then still silence from the NFL. So we at least have a quote-unquote kind of answer, or at least a date to look at moving forward. Okay, let's talk about anything other than this legal issue and the NFL issue. Preseason game number 2 tomorrow night. A couple things. The preseason game number 1, you at least had, Mahomes is going to play at least a little bit. It's the first time we're seeing this team on the field. Preseason game number 3 is going to be at Arrowhead, so you have the team at Arrowhead for the first time. Gabe, preseason game number 2 is on the road. It's in Seattle. It's a 9 p.m. kick, and there's a 95% chance Mahomes won't play at all. So
I think you're being light with that percentage.
Yeah, make it 99. Just because Andy Reid said probably, which is Andy Reid speak. Andy Reid said he was going to get a full quarter in week 1, so use that as kind of
well, scale. I thought it was funny the way that Andy Reid said this week because if we're talking about, and I joked on the show last week about the KCTV fact check series and bringing it to the sports department here because I've been told that we are able to do this, and so I've said that last week's statement needed to be run through the KCTV fact check of the data of the snaps that the starters play, and that proved to be true. And so I actually thought that Andy Reid slowly got to the point of saying what was the actual truth, which at first he started with, the starters might play, they might not play. We're still figuring it out. And then he said, well, some of them might play, but Patrick, there's probably a decent chance he's not going to do much. And then he by the end of it, he was just like, yeah, the other 3 are going to play a lot. And so it was kind of like peeling the onion back of more truth for what to expect Friday night, which I think is totally okay. I think if you're a Chiefs fan, you're probably good with veterans, guys over the age of 30, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, not putting a bunch of extra snaps on their body on an artificial surface, given it's just not necessary. And you got through the first game in the preseason without losing anyone of major significance. Obviously, the Deion Bush news is pretty big for special teams and such, and that's on a field in Arizona that we know its history of not being the greatest surface. So I think that there's a mix of a little bit of, hey, let's not play vets on artificial surfaces for no reason.
From this?
And also the third preseason game is at Arrowhead. If we're gonna play our guys for a preseason game, like let's do it in front of the home fans.
Yeah.
And even that, I don't know if that will happen or not. So we'll see. But Friday's probably a big night if you're family members of Gardner Minshew, Bailey Zappi, and Chris Oladokin. And otherwise, if you're watching for young players, which Andy Reid pointed out. And so I think the single biggest thing to watch on Friday night is whether Josh Simmons and Kingsley Suamataia play, because given what we learned about like the lack of preseason snaps for Kingsley last year and what it meant, I just think that and what we saw from Kingsley in Arizona not being like the greatest thing of all time, and the competition on the left side of the offensive line, I just think that that's probably the most intriguing thing is whether they play, how much they play, and going from there.
Got a couple more minutes, so we're going to move on to 2 quick topics. First of all, Royals and Current on KCTV5 this weekend. Should be a fun one. Current are Saturday at 3 o'clock against their number 1. They're playing the number 2 Pride, so it should be a really good match. Current, by the way, 12 points above the Pride for first place, and I think have been at the top of the table for 11 or 12 straight weeks. But we're going to start with the Royals, who kick off a 3-game series against the White Sox tomorrow. Sunday's game is on KCTV5 at 1:10. Gabe, I'm curious your thoughts because I know Mark's thoughts on this. Right now, the Royals have a 6.9% chance to make the playoffs, according to Fangraphs, which a week from this past Sunday, last year, a year from this last Sunday, the Tigers had a 0.2% chance, so could certainly be worse, and ended up obviously making the playoffs. They're 4 games back from the final wild card bid. Gabe, have you given up hope yet, or do you think there's still a chance?
I
know
haven't
there's
given
technically
up
a
hope,
statistical
but
chance.
I'm also not, like, the hope isn't, I'm not, like, riding and dying with believing that this
They're
is
gonna
going
really
to happen.
yeah.
I, if anything, have settled on the sad but accepted fact that they're probably going to finish like 81-81, and we're going to look back and be like, wow, well, the first half of the season they pitched super well and they couldn't hit. The second half of the season they hit really well and the starting pitching regressed a little bit, and now they're mixing and matching and all these kinds of things. Like, yeah, they're 8th most runs scored since the All-Star break in the MLB. Like, the offense has actually not been as big of a problem. Yesterday you lose because Seth Lugo, who's been really good until he signed his extension, which is concerning in a little bit of a way, gives up 5 runs in the first, including a grand slam to a guy that the Nationals turned around today and DFA'd, which I don't know if a lot of people realize, but I was like, that's quite a sad way to go out from a job if you're Nathaniel Lowe. So, yeah, my hopes are not very high, but the schedule is so bad throughout the back half of the season that you would,
just gonna get to.
at the very least, I think that that's going to infuriate Royals fans the most, is I think that the schedule is not hard enough for them to just, like, fall apart. So they're going to be in the conversation, which last week when I was talking to Mark about this on Friday.
Oh, so you got Mark's take too.
Yes, and I was critical of
I
was critical of Mark's, like, complete dismissal of it, the fact that the Royals are more competitive now, even in this season, more competitive than they've been in nearly any season aside from 14, 15, 13, and last year.
106 last season.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we're
rough.
not far removed from the worst season in franchise history.
Yeah.
All of those things to say, like, I said it on Friday when they were 4 games back, and they are still currently 4 games back, that they would finish closer to the wild card in terms of games back of the final spot than they currently are. I still believe that, but they're going uphill, especially if they're going to get into a race against the Yankees, who beat them 6 out of 6 times this year and who you lose a tiebreaker to. So really you're 5 games back of them.
Yeah.
The Mariners are playing well. The Red Sox are playing well. You don't have any more games against the Red Sox. But you have plenty of chances to beat the Rangers and the Mariners, who both come to Kauffman, the Rangers next week and the Mariners in a couple weeks. And I think that the one, like, small thing that is being slept on, as we've watched across baseball, like, divisional leaders just give away their division leads. Like, the Cubs went from 7 games up to 7 games down in a month or a month and a half-ish from the Brewers. The Tigers have really stayed steady, and the Royals have a ton of games left against the Tigers. I think they have 7 left, and even with that, the Dodgers have done the same thing in the NOS. So if there's anything to be said, like, the Royals, they almost have a chance in the Central because the Tigers are not playing, like, the greatest baseball. They're just hovering at where they were, and you have so many chances against them. So I think that there's room for them to get to, but my, like, final verdict is they're going to finish at, like, 83-79 or 82-80, and we're all going to be like, I can point to the 6 games that they lost this year that are just really bad losses, like the ones in Chicago to the White Sox, the one yesterday against the Nationals, and it's going to be a little frustrating, but yeah.
I'll tell you what.
Such is life as a baseball fan.
As a Royals fan. We got the next 2 weeks, I think, will be very telling to where this thing's going to go. You got 3 against the White Sox at home. Then you have 4 against the Rangers at home. Then you head to the road, 3 against the Tigers, 3 against Chicago, White Sox. And then you come back for 3 more against the Tigers. So kind of do or die time. We'll have our answers here soon. A team that is not even exceeding expectations, because these kind of are the expectations right now. The current dominant in the NWSL I mentioned a couple minutes ago. 12 points ahead of second place, which is the Pride. Orlando coming to Kansas City 2 days from now in a game that'll be on KCTV5, 3 o'clock on Saturday. Gabe, this has been, like, kind of a runaway. What do you think the current odds are of continuing this thing? And, unfortunately, they didn't make the final, the championship. The year was in Kansas City. This week it's, I believe, out in California. How confident are you that this team, runs away with the league?
Well, speaking of discussions with Mark and thoughts on teams in the Kansas City market, with Mark not being here today, we had this conversation last week when Ali Sentner got added to the current about where. Just how, that's a former number 1 overall pick in the NWSL, so it's a really good player. It's a player who was nearly Rookie of the Year last season, and was very close, or at least nominated for the award. And it's almost as if, I think that the interesting thing for the current is that, as you mentioned, with expectations and not necessarily just exceeding them, but just doing what people expect, which is winning a ton of matches. The current, the dichotomy of Royals fandom, where it's if we're just in contention, it's nice. They don't always do it. They're, if anything, odds are stacked against them because of the way that MLB sets up and smaller markets and such. The Chiefs, the NFL, there's plenty of parity because of the salary cap, and you can go from worst to first in a year and whatever. But the Chiefs are so well set up just because of coach, quarterback, general manager, all those kinds of things. The current, in their realm, yes, there's a salary cap. Yes, there are budgetary restrictions. But if there's anything that we've learned, and I know you've sat down with them and the ownership, the Longs, there's a commitment and an investment in terms of facilities, in terms of player acquisition, and just this, the Ali Sentner stuff is such a perfect encapsulation of where this organization is at. Of they're already winning, and yet they're just going to add to the roster, make themselves better as a, hey, this is a championship push type of move to go over the top and get even better. And where I almost feel the NWSL has existed for a while, it's getting so much more popular at this point, but the current has a chance to really step into the limelight, I guess, as one of the premier franchises in the league. And that's top down, how they work, how they treat their players, the investment in all of it. And I think that move, we haven't seen her play on the pitch yet because they've been on this such extended break, but you add her to a roster that has a Ballon d'Or nominee, and just players who are on women's national teams all over the place for different countries. I almost feel like I'm not generally a championship or bust, one of those type of people who wants to throw those types of things around. But we've seen the current play so well for so long that I almost feel you're it's when are they going to win the whole thing? And this is as perfect of a year as any to do that. I don't know if you feel the same way about it, but yeah.
Yeah, I actually did an interview for a investigative TV Plus, which will actually be on KCTV5 sometime soon. And this was my exact point, which is that the Longs have invested in this team. We know about the first purpose-built stadium built for women, and the world's best players want to be here, and they are. Take Tema. I'm with you. I'm with championship or bust. It's at PayPal Park, by the way. I looked that up this year. So certainly the team to beat. They're on their way. If they win Saturday, they will tie their own NWSL record for the longest win streak in the league.
It's going to be a hot one. Saturday afternoon.
So watch on KCTV5. It'll be another sold-out one. This is the regular season game of the year. But yeah, lots to look forward to this weekend, and lots to look forward to on KCTV5. Again, Current and Pride, 3 o'clock on Saturday. Royals and White Sox amid the postseason chase. Sunday at 1:10, also on KCTV5. So we will see you there. We'll see you back here for KC Sports tonight. Same time, same place tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching.